So this map came into existence and started popping up on the internet a couple of years ago. Okay, a couple of years ago. Right around the time, maybe right before the so-called pandemic, and it uh, amplified and eventually came to be put into a book written by somebody, and I have them on through them. They seem to be cool, you know what I mean? It seems to be cool. However, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt when you're dealing with internet information. And we don't even know if these people or this guy is even a real person, you know. However, the information sums up or comes to us from an earlier time, from the 50s, when a guy who was allegedly, also before I get into that, the present world view, which has become askew, has become open to various versions how or what reality is themed or believed to be, whether it be the shape of the reality or how it is poised or how it is positioned around it. Some people believe it's flat, some people believe it's the firmament, some people believe it's a realm, some people believe it's an infinite plane, much like a honeycomb, beehive, whatever you want it to be is whatever it can be, but it can only really be what it is. So until we get to the point of knowing what it all is, we can only go by and put together the relevant aspects of information that come to us from these alleged sources. And the alleged source of all of this came from this dude who was or is the premier individual who brought forth the idea to go out there and make that happen. And that was due to him by chance flying over into this pocket reality this space that through this space that um, was like a chasm that led into these lands that we see in the so-called NASCA funded map vis-a-vis. So based on that, as you see, he's in the master's pose because he himself, as we were talking about earlier, not only was a pilot, not only was an airman, but he himself was, or you could say is, a Grandmaster Mason. And in that cause, he was then put under the scientific division, technically kind of connected to NASA, but kind of not, because they were still trying to figure out who was gonna be okay with Nazis, basically telling them what to do and whatnot. So not everybody was with that. However, because he was such a high degree, they didn't necessarily want to disavow his findings and the stuff that he, the fantastic stuff he allegedly was talking about. So based on that, he couldn't get the money directly from them because the black budgets and stuff was being looked at. This was also kind of like the close of the era of McCarthyism. So you had big time snitches like Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan informing on all of the Hollywood communists that were being implanted through the so-called Jewish, so-called Hollywood network that was being funded through illicit drugs, prostitution, human trafficking, racketeering, murder, extortion, from people like Meyer Lansky and Nicky Cohen, the Cohen brothers, and these type of people who was being also funded, who was working with other mafias like the Italians, and then who was also connected to the Jesuit orders via the Catholics, and then under supervision of the CIA Black Desk, that then would take all of their tribute money and put that into the black back projects that they was doing. So all that money was tied up. They couldn't really rock with that on him. Plus they didn't. He was already focusing on that, and I don't think they wanted him so close to any other type of situation, being that this Allegedly was so fantastic. So he goes to all of them Freemasons, and all the Freemasons in different quarters of business and military and private sector and all that. They start giving him bread, so he get the bread up enough to get money to do like the first expedition. This is like before high jump. You know what I'm saying? This high jump is when the military realized, oh, this nigga's really, he's really onto something. Like this is real. So we gotta really make that happen. So he went out there, and once he got out there to the base camp, he realized he had to establish it in the name of the orders and stuff that they brought him through. So that's when he established the Order of the Penguin. He himself being the Emperor Penguin. This is your degree. In order for you to go to Antarctica and do certain things, you gotta become part of the Order of the Penguin. You gotta become a penguin. And that's like part of the thing. So this, once he established the order, this allowed him to bring his peoples through the Freemasonic channels up there, so they could really start seeing what was happening. So by the time it got to the military, this is what was happening. The order was already established and it was well funded, and they was able to start building stuff and lodges and stuff up there. You know what I'm saying? So characters like the Penguin and these type of people, these are like homages to Byrd. You understand? This is all in the book. You can get this book right here, Little America. It's all in it. But when you read it, you read the charter. This is how you know everything is up locked up under some sort of Freemasonic crypt somewhere. Somebody grandfather whatever. To all deep water sailors, right? To all deep water sailors, whoever ye may be, and to the walruses, right? The whales, the penguins, the shivering mermaids, and all other of the polar ice. Greetings. Know ye that on the 24th day of January, 1947, St. Louis, the Philadelphia experiment, March 272, blah, 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 crossed the Arctic Circle and entered into the Empire, it being the first rivercraft carrier ever to accomplish this feat and having entered my empire, right? Having braved the rigors of the Antarctic seas, shall henceforth be a royal penguin. Due honor and respect shall be given to all seafaring creatures. Okay? Under Admiral Byrd. This is the certified at John Fragner, in the domain of the penguin, in the Grand Antarctic Circle. See the signpost? Remember when you would see the cartoon, they would always have the signpost to say like Antarctica this way, North America this way, or that's what this where all this shit comes from. But once they went up there and found out that this dude had basically set himself up to be emperor, right? They realized they had to like do something. Like he, you know what I mean? Like he was really making it happen up there, and he was allegedly making contact with whoever was up there. But remember, this is like now in the 50s and all that. So this is all the Nazis that escaped up there, and the other ones that escaped up there. They was already supplanted. They was already doing their thing. So this young dude came up. He knew how to get there. He knew the maps. He knew when stuff opened. Like, you know, and remember, they didn't give him money. So, and he's serving Freemasonic interests on United States money. So by the third expedition, they was like, nah. So by the time they got there, they realized, yo, this dude is really about it. And that's when you hear Matthew Henson and them trying to get up there. So Matthew Henson brought them up there again, let them know one side of how, the area was navigated, and then Byrd basically took them further in. He allegedly met the people that's up there in what they call the ancestral republic that you see in those Gnostic pointing books, allegedly. But this right here is fact. This we're here is real. So regardless of what they talking about, what you want to believe about them, what was real or wasn't seen, we already know that anything that these people is dealing with is automatically something you should know because they automatically concealing about it. They're concealing it off top, so they not. So that's how you know you should know whatever it is. So much so that you had young dude like the dude Kroger. That's what you see his induction certificate to the order. This is him in real life. So remember, this is now after paper clip. They done brought all the Nazis in. They trying to get the intelligence thing now more on the Nazi frequency because they see how they was able to better control their people. And remember, that was all government corporate funded. That whole machine was basically funded by corporations. Now, because I say so, because there's documentation that you can get from the FBI that shows Prescott Bush was charged under the Trading with the Enemy Act, and somehow or another his son or sons or whoever family members was allowed to become president. So if they can allow somebody whose grandfather was charged with treason to in the next generation become president, it makes you shouldn't be bugging that somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whose father was a Nazi, according to the documentation, and who said before he was in office, said how much he admired Hitler. Nobody canceled him. They made him governor. I thought you couldn't be president or hold office if you wasn't born here or naturalized. So that's something else. So his buddy, pregnant, is pregnant. Right here. Is pregnant. The Philippine Sea. He's an aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea. He has been made a charter member of the Order of Penguins, an order created by Rear Admiral Byrd, Byrd, for men of the task force who arrived at the Antarctic Circle while participating in Operation High Jump, Philippine Sea. So Operation High Jump, the Philadelphia experiment, all of this shit happening in Montauk Point, all of this is happening right after all of these, they done brought all of these Nazis here and flooded the game with proto-Nazi propaganda. Yes, the penguin, the walrus, the albatross, the jackal. These are all their little code totems that they hide behind and use and things like that. So the protocols for Operation High, to get this book, Hitler's American Model. This book tells you everything that I've been talking about in terms of how they set this up and why it's not surprising that white nationalists and so-called black identity extremists who don't exist are trying to switch places. They've been setting the so-called white man up, Caucasian up for like 200 years to get to this point, with the whole world turning on them. Because that was the whole plan in the beginning, from the beginning, I should say. So like I said, Byrd put himself in the position in the master's pose. Mostly times you see Byrd, he always doing the master's pose. He put himself in a position to lay the groundwork for all of what became the Antarctic Treaty, which is the longest standing treaty with any nations between all nations on Earth. So all nations on Earth, good or bad, all agree that their citizens can't really go up there the way they go up. That's for a reason. This is the Tyler's book. Every Freemason lodge got a Tyler. That's the guy that walks you into this, to the stuff. So Puffy would be the Tyler to Biggie Smalls, where Suge would be the Tyler to Tupac, you know what I mean? So forth and so on. So this not only proves that the order of attainment and all this stuff existed, but this order that specifically for rich Freemasons was specifically ordered and has lodges within Antarctica, which means people who are part of that lodge get to go to Antarctica and don't have to worry about the treaty. Again, proving the world under the world. You know what I'm saying? Because all of it is demonstratively the same. It's just the category and how it's framed is dictated by whatever the visage of the age is being spotlighted. You know what I'm saying? So when they talk about representation and diversity, you already know they mean the opposite of that. They mean segregation. They mean racial profiling. They mean delusional. They mean delusional um, enablement. You know what I'm saying? So Osiris and Santa is more relatable. Osiris is more relatable, or Orion is more relatable to the ancient side of it. So the energy has to flip itself into what they can maintain and bring the same energy that the original would create to them in material game today. So the Mia Earhart situation, allegedly she crashed off the coast somewhere and they got ate by a whole island of giant snow crabs, spider crabs, a special type of crab. You know, eat you to death if you go on this island. Certain islands you can't go to. At night they just come out like killers. So allegedly she crashed there, and that's the story. The other story is that uh, the Bermuda Triangle and all of this is involved. But allegedly a lot of that rumor was allegedly started by Howard Hughes. You know? So because they broke everybody up into the different racial groupings, it makes it easier for them to tabulate people based on the operating system of the beast IBM computers. Understand? Like the fact that you had laws that were creating like the amount, as if you could calculate the exact amount. So-called black or white in somebody shows you the level of control in the overall breeding program that was taking place every day. For instance, so from a book called Racial Gradations in America, the gradations removed from the pure black lineage, black with white offspring, mulatto, which means one half black, one half white, generation one. Mulatto with white creates what? A musty. Right? We used to call people musty when they was little. See where all of this comes back now? Musty. 1/4 black, 3/4 white. Mulatto with black now creates a mongrel, which is 3/4 black, 1/4 white. Still second generation. Then you get a musty with the white, which then creates a fusty. A fusty, which is 1/8 black, 7/8 white, is the third generation. Then you mix the fusty with the white to create a dusty. Which is 1/6 black, 15/16 white, which is 4. Now go back to all of the old westerns where you would see people who was named Dusty, right? Give you a different perspective of the name. You thinking it's Dusty because or it means dust like it's dirty. No, that was a racial gradation that was being imposed on the new racial identity through miscegenation that was being inflicted on the people via propaganda and forced servitude. Yes, just like the different coding when it comes to so-called Aborigine. And see, people just put themselves in that because they just don't know. But the first type of origine, yes. He said mongrel, like the mongrels on the reservation. Yes, that's why they called them that. And then from there, you get the Mauritanian, the so-called mongrel, then the Sambo, then the Sambos, then the Mestizos, right? And it just keeps going down to the Chicanos, right? So the people claiming indigenous to the American way and all of that stuff now, or the original Mexican way and all that now, these are direct descendants of the people who was conquering people. Like MS-13 identifies with Cortez. Cortez was the killer, you know? So you get the second type of aborigine, which is the phenotype, which is the spirit. One cannot do with the other. Third type of aborigine, so-called mulattoes. Then you get the fourth type, like I said, which is mulattoes raised by interracial parents. The fifth type are then mulattoes, interracial couples, shared custody, primary joint visitation. All this type of stuff is part of the actual breeding program to make them believe that they are shunned from both so-called races. Because it allows them to keep control of both. Because when you can't trust one side, the other side, you always have the state. See what I'm saying? Then the state can come in and be whatever you need it to be. So my mother and my father, they both racist or whatever with me in my own way. So I'm gonna go to the army. Or I'm gonna go to Hollywood. I'm gonna go to New York. I'm gonna go to. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna make it like So a lot of these problems came through their own making by securing society in which they could not only buy people, but use them to create a whole another class of racial type of people to then be used as almost a separate race under them to then get rid of other people who look like them. And so the enemy knew that this type of hubris that these Moors is dealing with, where they amassing harems of thousands of women from different nationalities, but specifically of the Caucasoid regions, that they don't really have the greatest vetting system from when it first started. So over the years of luxury that these ones is living how they doing, especially some of the Andalusian ones and some of the decadent emirates that founded in places like Valencia and Seville and places like that, as well as Saleh, which was again the biggest slave jump in the world. These Moors was putting up numbers when it comes to the enslavement of these people. Yet, due to the historical narrative flipping, they then create a whitewash of it by referring to it as white slavery, as if there's a difference between enslavement of so-called white and black people. You don't want to, like, even though you could rise up and become king through slavery, it doesn't mean that it was a good system, no matter how humane it was, unless it was used as a means of punishment of some sort of crime, or unfortunately people who were prisoners of war who had to work off that war debt. But that doesn't change the reality of what the whole thing was actually doing to people. You still was putting people in bondage to work off certain situations that weren't necessarily put on them by their own means, which then made you a party to it. So there's books that are written about stuff like that. There's a book called The Myth of an Andalusian Paradise. They try to, shit on the legacy and all of that, say how, slavery and all that stuff is going on. But I mean, at the same time, there's never been a people on earth that haven't participated in the action. Yet at least in the situation, again, that we are not justifying, however, going to the fact that it still created the culture and the wherewithal of people to break free of those chains, including them. So for them to go back and then put chains on humanity the same way happened to them shows you that they learned nothing from their experience. In fact, they chose to double down on it and put more people in bondage behind it. You know what I'm saying? Which then creates the very system that we all find ourselves under, even them. They can't get past it. You know what I'm saying? So the thing with these Moors that you see on your screen, because you have some of these dirty Moors, like how you read about in the Necronomicon, Moor Agahazare brought forth the dirty elder ones, according to Lovecraft. When you read about those types of things, you come across that time that I refer to as the time of the Hereshef, where a lot of this type of stuff was manifested from. And these beings, these deities, these reals, as they started to call them, were more like parasitic aliens. They're like a consciousness that existed in a worm. So you can imagine a worm with a genius level consciousness that's so thin that it can travel between the fluids of people. And so as these worms was being cultivated by these dark people and encoded whatever sickness or entity or whatever, they then get implanted in these Caucasus or Caucasus types females that they was important from these places. You can read about this in the book 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. And this was a way that they would get the Moors, where they would make them legends. So bring them down from their noble nature by involving them in so much debauchery through these things that were put into them through sex. You see the same thing being done today, in which a lot of it is put into the central cluster of the brain through the so-called trichiny worm, or the trichology worm that the God used to refer to, but is essentially a consciousness within itself that is implanted through sex or through the eye, which explains the one eye symbolism. You know what I'm saying? And so this negative thought form, which again is parasitic in nature but interdimensional by is interdimensional by design, but evil by nature. But for whatever reason, they found out that they're able to, by they, I'm talking about the intelligence services and the people who deal with this type of debauchery. They found that for some reason, the satanic stuff is what allows the heavy energy for them to come through and do what they need to do. For some reason why the dark or the low entity that they deal with respond best to that type of shit. And then once manifest, they're able to then work and do whatever they do. So this is what the one-eye stuff and all this shit is really about. Right? I get punched in the face and all that behind that. Because this is to keep the entity in. And it's a way to celebrate its coming into existence. But when you get punched in the eye, what do you see? What do you see get punched in the eye? Stars. Exactly. Exactly. That's the entity being solidified, going further in, wrapping itself around your retina, moving closer into the prefrontal lobe of the brain. Now you're into just doing crazy shit. All cultures got them. You know, and you know how remember in Mexico they would have the worm in the bottom of the mescaline. Look up how they make mescaline. Stuff. But anyway, so this is what started to infect these Moors. This is what started to get them caught up. And now they're creating children and passing these things down between each other. And they're also now, based on these racial codes that we just went over, are creating these different hierarchies based upon, you know, how light or hard, how dark, or which society is moving closer to the original, which society is moving closer or farther away. Think about it. How can this area, which represents the extent of the Roman Empire, be the Roman Empire in the 5th century, the Roman Republic in 44 BC, in the 5th century BC, the Roman Republic in 44 BC, and the Holy Roman Empire in 962 BC, while at the same time in the Moorish Empire from 711 to 1492 over there, because it's been one continuous peoples moving a different version that was created amongst that civilization for about 5 generations, moving them out and bringing them into 5, 10, 25-year intervals. And if you time that up with how you grew up in certain neighborhoods, that's how the neighborhoods work. 50s, Bensonhurst, Flatbush, and all of that was all white. By the end of the 60s, it was basically all black. Between the 60s and about 80s, it was still all black. And from to about mid 2000s, it started to become all white. Where the black people go. You know what I'm saying? This is how cultures go from one era to the next. Time to just seamlessly switch on you. And how to use the different versions of Rome to confuse you as to which Rome they actually talking about. But they're all successive elements of the same people. It's just that these were pagans and then adopted a version of Christianity that they practiced as pagans. That's over there. Over here, when you read the Bible, as well as you read the so-called book, the so-called Bible, the so-called Book of Mormon, the so-called Book of Mormon, you will see that the land of the so-called Olmecs and the Maya, which today would be lower southern Mexico, places like La Venta, Terra Cruz, and all of that, that this area was occupied by these people. And these are the descendants of the people who exist up in Georgia and all of that today. Whereas in the Bible, in the biblical times, this was also referred to as this town of the city of Mulek. Right? But Mulek is also Malek or Malik. See what I mean? Same thing. So when you talk about the Mayans and all of that, they talk about these people, the Lamanites. Those are the Moors too. Now, in the studying and the breaking down what they've done to study and chart human development based upon the extent of man, they've also created a form of education that doesn't allow everybody to see themselves from the perspective of who they are. Especially in this culture where if you say Olmec and you say, Maya, they want to act like it's some body that don't look like you. One of the oldest pictures on the walls is there if you go today, darker than even us. And then still at the same time want to claim the conqueror and the people who destroyed all of that. And then say that they didn't first over the land when they have no building skills to build anything that was here while they allegedly was the oldest and whatever people here. How could that be?